Hi, we're back. Okay, so I'm just going to let my hair flow in my face. So we're not going to worry about that because, I've learned to just let things go. And so, anyway,
If it makes you feel better, I'll do mine while you're talking. How's that?
that's better.
All right.
Okay, this is part two of our discussion on conflict resolution. Um, and we ran out of time on the first one, and that's okay because in short spurts is best anyway, right? Um, ooh, that is a great insight for conflict resolution. Short spurts. That is really great insight that I have always had trouble with because I spent quite a long time in relationships with doing the long talk.
Ruth and I both like to talk a lot. She is I think you mentioned, right? You're a professor?
Yeah.
And I have a career where I do a lot of talking as well. And so that's what initially started these shows is that we have long talks. But the long talks we're alluding to are the ones where
you're arguing.
You have with your partner. Yeah. We need to talk.
The long talk. So,
short spurts.
Short spurts. And the other one before I forget, not bringing your professional life into your conflicts in relationships. So two things. One, short spurts. Just what I tend to think, and which is silly, is what I tend to think when I'm in a conflict in a relationship is somehow they just didn't hear me. So maybe I need to say it a different way. So maybe I need to say it 25 different ways, or maybe I just need to shake them like this and say, okay, you need to, But in reality, the short one is the better. You've got to, give that person time to absorb what you've said. Say it short, say it clearly, and of course, ideally, it's best to say it without anger, as lovingly as possible, and to say it from an I perspective. This is how I feel when this happens, or in my experience, or as I feel about this.
Yeah, because blaming isn't going to work.
Yeah, blaming never works. The minute you say
make me feel
you are, right, or you do, or what's wrong with you, well, that's one of the worst ones. What's wrong with you? Oh, never say that to your partner, ever, 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 unless they're like choking. In which case they can't answer you, so it doesn't matter. Just do the Heimlich maneuver. Don't ever say that.
Note to self, never say what's wrong with you unless you're joking.
But be careful when you bring you into the conversation, because then all that does is it creates defensiveness. Because then they're feeling judged, and it works the other way around. The other thing is the professions. Me being a professor, there's other professions too. One of them, therapist, counselor, that sort of thing. Whatever your profession is, it's good to not bring that into your private talks. Because like for me, I'll get, you're lecturing me. I'm not one of your damn students. And at first I resented that because, yes, you are. You obviously don't understand where I'm coming from, so I have to go and have to explain the whole thing. And if I have to go back to the original concepts, then I'm going to do that. So sit down and listen. And by the way, take notes. Wrong approach. It doesn't work. Leave your professional self out. Yeah. As much as you can. This is two human beings, and your path isn't any better or worse than their path.
Right.
And so you're trying to communicate with that other human being, and so, you have to just bring your regular human self to the table.
And don't forget, if I can,
clear.
Yeah.
Please interrupt.
This is the person that you love.
I don't mean interrupt. I mean, please go.
I'll interrupt if I want. No.
All right. See, there you go. Conflict resolution.
Conflict resolution. You do what you want. I'll do what I want. No.
All right.
But this is the person that you love. This is a person that you're in a relationship with, that you are trying to, go through life with, and that's hard enough. So keep that in mind when you're arguing with someone. That this is a person that you care for. This is a person that, ultimately you would do anything for. So remember that. Step back, and that's really hard in the moment. I know that. But that's why we say time and space. Step back and really look at that, because ultimately, along with picking your battles and forgiving the other person and seeing what they're mirroring to you, what you can learn and what you can grow from, ultimately you need to remember that you do have good times with this person. And I'm hoping that's the case, or you shouldn't be with them, really. That's just another episode. But, remember that. You love this person. So it's okay to have conflict. It's okay to have a discussion, even an argument. But don't be belittling. Don't be, attacking that person. Come from a place of love and say what you need to say. But say it like Ruth said, in a loving way, in a non-attacking or non-hurtful way, really.
And take as much time as you need to until you can say it
Right.
in a non-loving way.
No, in a loving way.
I'm sorry, getting ahead of myself. No, don't do that Freudian stuff. In a loving way, right? I mean, it's very, very important because basically, when we are being condescending, when we are being verbally abusive to our partner, even when we are patronizing them, like, oh yeah, that's just fabulous. If we're using sarcasm, I'm the queen of that. I can tell you I've used it plenty. Poor exes.
When you argue, do you cross your arms like that?
Yeah, exactly. Body language, like, I'm not listening to you because I think what you have to say is really stupid and worthless. And that's what's going on in your mind. Or how can I rebut that?
And it's being communicated with those nonverbal cues.
And that's the thing about, like we want others to love us and value us for ourselves and respect us and treat us with love and yet in a conflict, I know I've been the worst about not doing that for them. I don't see it like you see it. I don't understand why that's important to you. That seems stupid to me. When I'm communicating those kinds of things, then what I'm communicating is that I really don't care about you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to think that what you think is important, but I don't need to belittle you for thinking it's important either.
Right. Right.
And that's a big, huge one that I've done a lot of. So resolution, how do you get to the long 2 days worth of talk doesn't work very well. Having sex after fighting to make up only works for a few people in the population. I think it's like 1.3%.
It's worth a try, though.
But I have noticed this: the more conflict I've had in my relationships, whether that conflict is overt in an argument or whether it's the unspoken kind, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's things you want to say and you're just, so even if it's the silent conflict, the more of that there is in a relationship and the more disrespect you have for one another and who one another is and what one another feels is important and how one another behaves, etc., actually, I think the less you want to have sex with them.
Mm-hmm.
The attraction and the romance kind of goes away.
And one of the things I was going to say, what was it? My train just derailed.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Humor. Bring humor in, and this is not always possible, so I would say use this with caution. But sometimes, if you can just step back and totally see your partner in a different light. Think of one of those things that you guys laugh about all the time. Think about that.
Yeah.
It'll calm you down. It'll make you smile. And sometimes if they're seeing that you're smiling, they might just kind of relax and say, this is silly of us.
Yeah.
Let's go for a walk and talk about this, or let's, pack a picnic lunch and go do something and talk about it outside. You're grounding yourself when you're outside.
Mm-hmm.
You're closer to nature. It just feels better than when you're in the house where everything takes place anyhow. So humor can also be a good conflict resolution tactic or tool in your toolbox, just because it disarms people.
Yeah.
And it does, and sometimes I just like to think of something funny that my partner's done, a day or two before, and I'll just start thinking about that, and all of a sudden, whatever it is, sometimes it just doesn't matter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even really a conflict. Sometimes it's just because, as we said, you're tired or whatever. You're in a space where you want to argue.
Yeah.
And if you can get yourself out of that space, sometimes that alone will resolve the conflict.
Right. So. I mean, that's a great, that's a great one. I was smiling as you were talking about it, that the use of humor. But I wanted to remind everybody that not one thing always works, exactly. Even in a similar situation. You kind of have to learn to try different things, but those things need to be loving to them and loving to yourself is the most important thing. But trying different ways, being silly sometimes works. One thing that worked for me some of the time, not all the time, was the take back. The basically like, oh, wow, that did come out pretty fucked up, so I'm going to take that back. And then just being for both parties, if they're able to just let it go, and move on And that's a big, huge part, is just being able to let go, let
Mhm.
go, let go, let go.
Right.
Focus on self. Focus
Yeah.
on yourself. How could I do? How could I handle this differently? How did
Yeah.
I react?
And
Um,
sometimes that's
you
what
know,
the time and space will do.
yeah,
You know, you'll take your time and space and, go to your room, go outside, go wherever you go for a drive or whatever, and you come back and you go, man, I was a real asshole.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
really
yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
You're right. And that does happen. And if you can't say to your partner, you're right and I'm wrong, you need to work on you.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
you're going to be wrong sometimes.
yeah.
And I think it really is disarming to say that to a person and say, you know what? After giving this some thought and calming down a little bit, getting myself out of the space where things were tense and aggravating, I realized that you have a good point. And so that's another tool in your toolbox, is to just, you know, admit if you're
Mhm.
wrong,
Yeah.
and think about it.
And you don't always have to. There doesn't have to be a case where someone's wrong or someone's
Right.
right. It doesn't always have to be that way. It could be just two different perspectives. But sometimes it is very helpful for me to go back, and if I do really feel this way, you know what, you were right. I'm really sorry, and you know, back up your apologies with trying to change your behavior. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
apologize and you say, "Well, I said I'm sorry," and then you continue to do the same behavior, it's
Right.
not very useful.
Right.
And um, just you know keep keep working on letting go of the little stuff, trying to value that person for who they are, um, allowing them to value you for who you are, even if the way that you do it is different.
Mm-hmm.
Respect the difference, learn to embrace the differences between you, and stop
Absolutely.
trying to make your partner into a mini you, because I mean, I've been guilty of that. So
Mm-hmm.
hey, I know I've done that many,
Mm-hmm.
many times, or tried to. And it's kind of, there was something else I wanted to say, but it's totally left my head. So I guess it'll either come back or it won't. Do you have anything?
No, just I think one of the things that you can do is, if you are having a lot of conflict in your relationship, get on the internet. I did a real quick search before we started the video, and there are tons of things, and they're very easy. Some are videos, some are just a list of, try to do these things, and some of them are what we talked about. Reduce the stress. Don't be tired or hungry when you're arguing, or whatever it is. But there are resources out there, and ultimately, if it's a huge issue and something that you can't handle by yourself, get counseling. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of employers offer assistance. A lot of counselors offer a sliding fee scale, and it's well worth it to go and be able to talk to someone who's completely neutral, someone who will listen and is trained to listen, and really give you good feedback about, well, if this is the way it really is, then you have a really good point. If it's not, maybe you need to look at these things. And I would highly recommend counseling. 10 years ago, I would have said, screw that. Counseling's for the birds.
You
I'm
did.
not
I
going.
remember
I
you
did. I
said
did
that. Yeah.
actually say that. I think I used a little
20
stronger
years ago,
language,
I said
but
that.
yeah. So, but go. It's well worth it. So, if you have any other questions on conflict resolution, or if this video isn't helpful, let us know. Give us some feedback. We welcome that, because that ultimately helps us change. So,
Absolutely, and thanks again for being our viewers, and we hope that you have a wonderful, peaceful, conflict-free, yeah, good luck, or at least dealing with it well, day.
yeah. Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste. Share with your friends. Thanks.